available. If you have any questions or would like to know what I'm wearing, you can also check it out on the Discovery Pod with Ease YouTube channel, or you can reach out to me on Instagram at Richards. Oh, I'm joined today by my co-host, Tony Blas. Tony is a marketing professional. He's partnered with companies such as the Serrano, Porsche. He's also an actor, producer. He does it all. Tony, welcome. Tell us something that you're working on or anything new.
Well, thank you. I'm working on a horror film right now. Set in 1987. I think I can say that without breaking these endless NDAs. But in this case, I've got my long hair, so I'm all ready to have a mullet, a real one that's going to come right off the old head. So that's like a little bit exciting for me right now.
That's exciting. So I don't know when the show is going to end, but several weeks back we actually had the Discovery Pod with Ease launch party, and it was just fantastic. Thanks to Roger Neal for bringing all the press and all the photographers to attend that event, and it was incredible. Of course, we've got to thank Roger for producing the show. So what did you think of the launch party?
Well, once I got there after the traffic, I was unfortunately unfashionably late. It was a whirlwind because there was just all these celebrities and pictures and fun. I met celebrities and interesting, influential people from around the globe, Europe, Asia, everywhere. So it was really fun. It was one of the best launch parties ever, and I could see the Four Seasons Hotel from her balcony in Beverly Hills. And it was spectacular.
Thank you. And of course, I am so excited about the show and the launch party. Of course, Roger's going to be doing a huge press announcement very soon regarding season 2. But please, you got to watch this episode. So, without further ado, we've got Sandro Monetti. He is an award-winning British journalist. He grew up in Blackpool in north of England. Sandro is the ultimate Hollywood insider. The stars feel comfortable talking to him on the red carpet. He's interviewed Al Pacino, Sylvester Stallone, George Clooney, to name a few. He's also a regular contributor on CNN. He co-hosts BBC Radio Oscars coverage every year. Gosh, he does it all. So, without further ado, welcome, Sandro.
Eve, what a thrill to be here. What an intro. Most of that is even true. Yes. Yes. Overwhelming. Yes.
I knew this was going to be a wild ride. Well, so you started your own magazine in school? Is that how you got going with interviewing celebrities?
I've always thought it's good to be a game changer and occasionally a rule breaker. I started my own magazine in school because they wouldn't let me edit the official school magazine. Which I thought was way too boring. So instead, I started an alternative tabloid magazine, which became a lot more successful, where we documented, the love lives and the popularity of the teachers. And so, yes, I think I showed my early sort of love of gossip, even back then.
And you didn't get kicked out?
No, because the teachers were, I think, a bit nervous about. They were all reading it in the staff room, and checking their weekly popularity charts. So no one wanted to get a bad mark with me. It's almost like I was sitting in judgment of the teachers rather than the other way round.
That's exciting.
It's interesting. I was always drawn towards the creative arts back then, and writing my greatest passion at that time. So that was my creative outlet.
So, we actually spoke a few minutes ago, just before we came on air. And one of the things that I found fascinating was that you lived next to Marilyn Monroe. So, Marilyn Monroe's published. Tell us, how was that, living next to Marilyn Monroe's published?
Well, to backtrack, I always grew up fascinated by Hollywood, always wanted to live in Los Angeles. It was just a matter of making it happen. And wonderful thing about Los Angeles is that you're never more than a short walk away from some legend or connection to one as well. And then so I was lucky enough to meet in the neighborhood Jim Selman, who was Marilyn Monroe's last publicist, and he told me and my friend Erin Gavin about that Marilyn had an on-off love affair over many years with Frank Sinatra. Wow. And I wasn't aware of this at all, so decided to investigate this story further using my journalistic background, and found it all to be true. And so I thought, well, how can we dramatize this story? Yeah. So I did it originally as a play called Marilyn and Sinatra, launched here in Los Angeles, went on to New York, played the West End of London. That was 7 years ago. You can now hear it on Audible and at bigfinish.com by searching Marilyn and Sinatra. So we did it as a play. And so just that conversation with sort of someone in the neighborhood sort of sparked this whole investigation, and ever since then I've become something of a protector of Marilyn. I didn't know much about her when I started this project. Now I think she was an incredible trailblazer. I think she changed Hollywood. I think conditions in Hollywood started to be different from women thanks to her, because the deal she negotiated for 7 Year Itch, where she started her own production company, she decided to be paid what she was worth.
Good for her.
And even it's been my experience meeting a lot of Hollywood stars that those who have the reputations as airheads and who are underestimated are often the smartest people in the room.
That's incredible. So as a segue into that question, actually, what surprised you about these two iconic stars? And lastly, how did they get together?
They got together because Hollywood is very much a small community. Now, when I was growing up in England, it seemed so vast. Yes. But when I actually worked in it, you realize that pretty much everybody knows everybody else. Yes. And then so they're going to sort of get thrown together. And they got together after Frank's split from Ava Gardner. And Frank was so sort of brokenhearted by that, and wondered if he would ever love again. And Marilyn saw this as a challenge, and so let's just say she was the one to conquer his heartache. And there was a scene in the play we dramatized that he said he was going to make a special announcement for her, taking her out for dinner. It was going to be a really big night. She was expecting an engagement ring. Wow. He pulled out a pair of earrings. Has that ever happened to you, Eve?
No, not yet. Yes. Maybe it will. Seriously. Oh
you can imagine the disappointment. How would you treat someone if they'd come up with that? Because Marilyn wasn't pleased.
I would be very disappointed, and I would just literally leave. Seriously, like, no.
Yes, Sinatra, a fascinating figure, a massive contradictions as well. And I'm writing an audio drama at the moment in which he's involved, and she is as well. I'm doing something about Hollywood in the 1950s, which is a really sort of fascinating period as well. And yes, even though sort of now I operate in sort of modern Hollywood, as I referenced with the Marilyn answer before, it's I've gotten to know Margot Robbie, interviewed her several times, and she's just had the success with Barbie, of course, which she also produced. Yes. And when she tries to pitch that movie to Warner Brothers, she goes in and she pitched it brilliantly. She said, this movie is going to make $1 billion.
Fantastic.
And then she got the argument, yeah, but are men going to go? Men will go. And they thought it was, she said, it's not going to be, Sex and the City 3 or something like that. Yeah. So this is going to be something for everybody. It's going to be a cultural phenomenon.
Incredible. She
was actually wrong with her $1 billion prediction because it took $1.4 billion.
Wow. Oh, my God.
But she's also smart. She's learned a lot from contracts because normally when movie stars set up a new property like this, there are things in the contract for sequels. There are clauses. I'll be paid this much for 2, this much for 3. She left that blank, knowing that, Barbie would be such a moneymaker that she and her production company could negotiate great deals for any potential sequels.
Wow.
So it all started with Marilyn.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So I think she's going to be doing something with the game Monopoly.
Yes, exactly.
Do you know anything about that?
I do, because this is a project that Ridley Scott had for years, and wasn't able to make it work. And Barbie was a production that was with Sony, had been around for Hollywood for a number of years, and no one could make it work. But of course, suddenly Margot and her production Lucky Chap have suddenly got to the Midas touch. So yes, after a success in Hollywood, you could do whatever you want next. And so yes, she's taken another iconic property, a game this time rather than a doll. And yes, when you think about Monopoly, yes, there's so many things you could do with that, isn't it? About acquisitions and finance. So I'm very interested to see what she comes up with.
So you cover the royal family,
I do.
obviously. And what's better for you, covering celebrities or covering the royals?
Eve, it's such a great question because, they're all celebrities at the end of the day, aren't they? Now, so I started my journalistic career covering Princess Diana in the last year of her life.
Amazing.
And was so fortunate enough to meet her and learned a lot from her as well. Now, when she died, I was just so devastated. It was like a death in my own family to some extent.
Sorry.
And so the editor of my newspaper said to me when I said I didn't want to be doing royal coverage anymore, said, "Well, why don't you cover celebrities? Because that's again it's an adjacent move. It's high profile figures, and that is eventually what led me from Britain to Los Angeles, coming out here for press junkets and things like that, and learning that yes, this was the place I really needed to be, and so
good weather.
So
as well.
So I spent 20 years in the entertainment space, and also the can-do spirit of California, which has existed since the gold rush, really very much inspired me to realize that anything was possible, and I could follow my passions and do different things. I didn't just have to be a journalist, didn't just have to be a playwright. Anything's possible. And then when Meghan Markle appeared on the scene, I came back to royal reporting. And so the stuff I was doing for CNN International, BBC World News and other channels, we took a bit march sideways because I thought, well, this is really interesting. This has the potential to be Diana all over again.
Yeah.
Is it the next royal fairy tale? But as we often find with fairy tales, they sometimes turn into nightmares.
Yes, unfortunately. So what can you tell us about Princess Diana that no one actually knows about?
She was incredibly media savvy, and she would ask anything she didn't understand, and then you gave her the answer, she would get it immediately. It annoys me, this narrative that has popped up about how Diana hated the press. No, she didn't. She loved the press, and the press very much loved her.
Yeah.
There were elements of it that she didn't love, of course, but I mentioned Frank Sinatra before. He always said when it came to photographs and presentation, angles are attitudes. The way you tilt your hat, the way you look in a photograph conveys so much. And Diana understood this as well. The way she would look shyly above her fringe, the way she would sit alone on her bench. You could read so much emotion in her face from the power of a photograph. And she learned how to do that because royals, unlike celebrities, do not give interviews unless it's a very rare TV special or something like that. So how do you convey what you really think with a gesture?
Yes.
And she, if you look back at that old footage of her, she wasn't saying much, but you could always tell what she was thinking, or she could convey what she thought she wanted you to think she was thinking.
Even on the day she got married to Prince Charles, well, he's now King Charles, but looking back, you could tell. There was this expression on her face.
Well, I think back to the engagement announcement because there was the "Are you in love?" and Charles answers, "Whatever love means." Watch that clip on YouTube after you've finished watching all these episodes on YouTube, of course. And then go back to that, and you see the reaction on Diana's face. It's almost like a dagger to the heart because that's a young girl in love. He just needs to say yes. But with centuries of royal decorum and tradition. The words that come out of his mouth are whatever love means. And those three words really, I think, dictated and to an extent overshadowed that relationship.
Wow, sad.
Well, I think there was a lot of confusion about the palace's reaction to her death, and various stories about who inside wanted to be more demonstrative about it, who was holding back, why, what were the reasons, and so forth, and why there was even some controversy over whether she'd get a state funeral or not. So can you tell us what's the real story as far as what was going on in the palace after Lady Di?
It was a Game of Thrones. It was a war. It was a battle of wits. It was 1997. Britain was at a transformational time when they just had a new Prime Minister, Tony Blair, coming in representing youthful vitality. Yeah. You had this ancient institution, the royal family, who refused to fly the flag at half-mast because of tradition, refused to give a state funeral because she wasn't born to the throne, she married into the royal family. And so you had somebody like Tony Blair, who was very much in touch with modern Britain and an institution which is doing centuries of tradition, much like the Vatican or the Catholic Church. You know, they have ways of doing things which are different from politics and PR spin. So it was a battle for the hearts and minds of the British public and for the larger Commonwealth as well. I would say it was probably the second biggest constitutional crisis of all time in terms of coming close to the monarchy ending, because Diana was so loved, and there was a feeling that love wasn't shared by all elements of the royal family. So the Queen would take counsel, and eventually, she made the right decision there. But there were a few, as she always did, because Her Majesty the Queen was more than just the head of the nation. She was CEO of Britain Inc. as well. Yes. And so now that she's gone, we really miss her, and we miss her genius as well. And you think back to the whole centuries-long tradition of the royal family. There aren't that many that really we remember. There's Henry VIII, for the wrong reasons. There's
Richard
Elizabeth
III.
There's Richard III for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
There's,
possibly not as bad as we thought.
There's
he was.
Elizabeth I for better reasons, and then Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning monarch. Wow. So she really sort of set the template, and as we go forward now for the future royals, it's going to be so interesting to watch if they hang on to that tradition or they become modernizers, and this is the constant debate and dilemma, which makes it so fascinating for me as a royal watcher and royal correspondent to cover this stuff. So
for you as a journalist and also British, what did you think of the interview with Harry and Meghan on Oprah?
I thought it was bombshell television. There was just one incredible a comment after another. But as someone who's always admired Oprah as the best of what we do, I thought it was a disappointing night for her journalistically, because unlike other high-profile celebrity interviews, there were no follow-up questions. Yeah. And so when statements are made, now the Queen famously came up with a statement on behalf of the palace after this interview: recollections may differ. I talked before about the power of the three-word statement, whatever love means. Now, recollections may differ is a very polite way of saying, what a load of old rubbish!
Yes, exactly, right.
It's a very dignified way of saying a lot of what you said there is utter nonsense, but we are not going to ignore it. So in terms of all-time great TV interviews, great, and it certainly added to the Oprah legend, but there were things said in that interview by Harry and especially by Meghan which deserved clarification, and that opportunity was not taken. I'd love to have done the interview myself, but Oprah, it would have been a very different interview. They probably made the right decision. Let's put it that way.
So, in your book, which is such a fun read, I recommend it for
Confessions of a Hollywood Insider. Thank you so much.
It's so great. So there's so many fun things I want to ask you about, but one of the first things is that you talk about having kissed Madonna and how that happened, right? So tell us about that and about What do you think?
Oh, you want me to kiss and tell?
Oh,
yes. Well, it's now in the book. I talk about how I've met and interviewed the 100 biggest stars in the world, and when people find out what I do for a living, they always ask me what so and so really like, and so I thought, well, why not answer that question in the form of a book? So the format is, it's listed by the 100 biggest stars in the world, and there's a couple of pages on each about my interactions with them. Now, when you are a celebrity interviewer, it is important, or a royal correspondent, it's important not to be starstruck, because you have a mission to be the voice of the audience and find out, what they want to know. But sometimes my professionalism dips, and I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, but I was such an incredible fan of Madonna. I mean, you grow up with the poster on the wall,
of course,
and so it hadn't happened to me very often. But
she was so big.
She was so beautiful, magnetic, smart, special, everything that you hope her to be. Yeah. And this wasn't a one-on-one interview; it was a press conference. So with 100 other of Britain's finest there, how do you make a difference? So
how clever.
She was arriving, I think it was for a UK tour, and so I rather boldly got the first question and said, as a symbolic gesture on behalf of everybody in Britain who loves you, can I give you a good luck kiss on behalf of the British public?
Wow!
And I was trying to do it, and then she said, like she was the Pope or something, "You may kiss my hand." So I was like, quite literally kissed the ring. So I thought, well, I didn't need a second invitation, and so I rushed out. Probably, I'm not proud of this moment. It's probably inappropriate, but on behalf of the British public, I did it.
But she remembers
I kissed the ring, and I must say, very cold skin. I hope that doesn't indicate a cold heart, but I thought she was wonderful. But I think I lingered a bit too long. Because it was like, this is every schoolboy's dream moment, isn't it? Getting to kiss the hand of the fair damsel. I think it was when her 7'6" Bulgarian security guard lifted me off my feet and threw me back in her seat. I realised that my moment was over. But what was really funny is after that, she said, right, any sensible questions? And then there was an Italian journalist there for Corriere della Sera, and he goes, on behalf of the people of Italy, could I give you a good luck kiss on behalf of the Italian?
Oh my God,
she's like,
funny.
No, this stops now.
Wow.
So, always important to get the first question. So sorry about that, Madonna. It was probably massively inappropriate, but it made me very happy, and you're a legend, and you continue to rock. And what I admire about Madonna, by the way, she could quite easily be a greatest hits act at this moment, who could just sit in Vegas, play 200 shows a year, and just do that. But she continues to be so in love with music. She works with the hottest producers. She's always looking for new stuff, and I think she's wonderful, and definitely the mark of a great career or a great movie, is not awards, it's time.
And she reinvents herself constantly.
Yeah.
So as a follow-up to that, what is the worst question you ever asked in your career?
Okay. That would be to another icon, to Paul McCartney. Now, with Paul McCartney, I didn't want to be like Chris Farley in that famous Saturday Night Live sketch. If you've not seen this, watch it on YouTube, because Chris Farley interviews Paul McCartney as an SNL sketch as a huge fan and goes, do you remember when you were in the Beatles? What was that like? And so I thought, McCartney must have this all his life. And I made another journalistic mistake that day. I wanted him to like me. That should never enter your thoughts. I said, you're there to do a job and get information. So I thought, okay, so he was there to promote the opening of LIPA, which is a performance arts school in Liverpool, to give students the chance to have the kind of breaks that he got, of course. And he'd put £1 million of his own money into this school. He'd announced he was going to lecture there as well on occasion. And so many questions. And I thought, okay, let's give him a really tough question, and then he'll respect me. So I'm normally kinder than this, Eve, but the words that came out of my mouth: Paul McCartney, multi-millionaire megastar. What on earth do you know about the youth of Liverpool today and what they're going through that makes you the right person to back up this school? Now, the bigger the star, the nicer they are, in my experience. And he's faced every kind of question, so he knows how to handle this.
Yes.
And answers it with grace, class, and brains. And, of course, he answers it by saying, well, unlike most other people that these students will meet, I think I can give them a different perspective. Because having been there and worked in the music industry for many years and had a level of success, I can maybe tell them what it takes and what it takes to stay there as well. So that put me in my place. He didn't have to swear. He just had to beat me with brains. So, yes. Viewers, you must be getting a terrible impression of me through this, but if you read the other 98 stories in Confessions of a Hollywood Insider, you'll find some degree of professionalism in there. One would hope. Yes,
funny as
and it's available on Audible, by the way, if you want to hear me doing impersonations of these stars. Yes.
So speaking of that, there's another story here.
Oh no!
And I'm wondering. It says you peed on Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes.
How did you survive that?
Whoa!
So one of the privileges of being an entertainment reporter is you get invited to all the great parties. And I was at a movie premiere with total A-list stars everywhere you look. And having imbibed a bit too much of the free drink, I went to the bathroom to spend a penny, as we say in England, and found myself. This could only happen to me, at the urinal. In between, to my left, George Lucas. To my right, Samuel L. Jackson.
Wow.
And I thought, now. I don't know if you know this, Eve, but there is a decorum among men in these kind of situations.
I don't know.
It's like, just stay silent. Okay. Don't say anything.
Okay.
And just look down. Just look down or look up. Don't look anywhere else. But I'm looking down, and I am stunned by Samuel L. Jackson's shoes. And they just look so magnificent and expensive that as we're standing there, doing what comes naturally, I turn my eyes to look at the shoes, and involuntarily I turn my body to the right as well, and end up peeing on Samuel L. Jackson's hand-stitched Gucci's.
Wow, that's funny.
And Samuel L. Jackson looked down at his shoes, looked up at me in the eye, and delivered the word for which he's paid about $20 million a movie. So, yes, what a privilege to hear that word spoken to you by Samuel L. Jackson.
Have you seen him? Like, how's your interact? Do you laugh about it when you see him?
I tend to avoid him, especially around bathrooms. But I've seen him several times. But I admire him very much, but I'm also a bit scared of him. So I decide to stay away.
Wow.
Yes,
so what season just ended? Any surprises from you, like Oscars or anything that surprised you?
Yes, the awards season really surprised me. I couldn't understand why Oppenheimer and Poor Things got all the awards. But I guess my taste is different from awards voters. To me, The Holdovers was such an incredible emotional movie. It should have won at least 10 Oscars. Wow. I thought Wonka was a thing of beauty and magnificence.
Yeah.
And I thought Saltburn was really daring and could have potentially changed the industry. And as someone who's been covering the Oscars for many years now, I just think there's often an increasing disconnect between voters, critics, and audiences. So I do vote for other award shows, but not a member of the Academy. They're too smart to have me. But yeah, it's really interesting to see the momentum that builds up, because awards season lasts for about 5 months now. It's something of a horse race where you never want to be the front runner. But in this one, Oppenheimer was the front runner from the start and held its position. I mean, there was talk about the Zone of Interest maybe taking it or Poor Things at the end, but it held on. And there's a whole industry that's been grown up out of awards season. You have awards campaigners, awards specialists, So in the future work that I do, I'm definitely going to explore what it takes to win an Oscar, because I think I know, having been around this. And so yes, it can't be that difficult. So maybe the opportunities out there to make rather a totally cynical awards play rather than an artistic experiment designed to win awards. So Eve, when I'm back on this show next holding my Oscar, you can say, well, you were right, Sandro.
Waiting to see that. Amazing.
So you wrote a play, speaking of script writing, called Miserable Lesbians. Is that Les Miserables?
Yes, it's the parody musical of Les Miserables, and probably couldn't get away with it today. But when I did it 10 years ago, the idea it had a social message. It was about sort of marriage equality as well, and it was around the time of sort of same-sex marriages. So I decided to make the musical about, rather than a bunch of starving peasants in France, this was about a bunch of starving lesbians who were trying to campaign for equal marriage rights. So it's important to get messages even into comedy, I think, and so so that was the cause. And so it started off as a short film, which won won a bunch of awards at an event called the Toscars, which was the parody Oscars. When that's if you've got a near the knuckle sense of humour, go to YouTube and watch Miserable Lesbians Toscars, and then you'll see that.
It's funny.
But then I thought, well, there's something here. So maybe there's a stage play we can turn this into. So I built it out into a full-scale musical, assembled a wonderful team. We did it at the Edinburgh Festival, and it was a huge hit there. So much so that a woman in the audience was laughing so much that an ambulance had to be called, and we stopped the play.
Wow.
And so, once I'd made sure she was okay, I'm thinking, this is great publicity, so let's just, but didn't use that as the promo, but, we were sold out. And then that as well went to London and New York. So it showed me that there is something there in stage musicals, and it's just a different form of creativity as well. And wasn't in it. I don't need to be in these things, but, it's just a pleasure to write and direct and bring so much enjoyment to people.
So you might have something new coming up with Harry and Meghan. Are you willing to share with us?
I'll talk about my next musical first, and then I'll come on to Harry and Meghan. So after the experience with Miserable Lesbians, and then doing Marilyn and Sinatra as well, I thought there's something going on in entertainment in recent years, the power of nostalgia. I think a lot of 80s music coming back through Stranger Things as well, and streaming as well. People discovering how great 80s movies were as well. So I was walking through London, and I was suddenly seeing Back to the Future, the musical, Pretty Woman, the musical, Ghost, the musical. And so, there's something happening here. And my favourite movie is Die Hard. So I was able to get the rights to that, to stage a very Die Hard Christmas in Christmas 2023 in Los Angeles. And that was a big success. And I really think it can be a new Hollywood tradition, because it's a love letter to that movie wrapped in Christmas Christmas tinsel with festive songs as well. And so in 2024, it will open December 4th at the Bourbon Room on Hollywood Boulevard.
Nice.
And then on December 21st in the West End of London. And so that's the journey of a very die-hard Christmas. And it just shows that sometimes you can get ideas anywhere. So there I was just walking down the street looking up. When you're in London, it's always important to look up because there's such incredible architecture. But rather than looking at the carvings this time, I was looking at the billboards. And I thought, oh yeah, there we go, Die Hard the musical. Now, people don't generally do musicals from action movies, but maybe we'll have Rambo the musical next. Who knows what's going to happen?
I don't
The
care.
Expendables on ice.
Sandro, you've accomplished what I've always wanted Die Hard to be.
Yeah.
A Christmas movie.
Well, it is a
Thank
Christmas movie,
you.
and I have the stats to back that up.
That's
because
incredible.
there are 15 Christmas songs on the soundtrack of the Die Hard movie. There's only 3 in a Miracle on 34th Street, and there's only 7 in Home Alone. So, therefore, and even though it was released in July, people tend to think about Die Hard as a Christmas movie. You asked me about Harry and Meghan. So yes, the other upcoming project is I'm one of the talking heads on a new documentary series coming in fall 2024 to TV stations around the world about it's a 3-parter about Meghan and Harry. How they met, the romance, the fairy tale marriage, the fallout with the royal family, the Oprah interview. I mean, the royal family is the greatest soap opera in the world. It really is.
There's so much interest.
Yeah, and hopefully this is another chapter where, because normally when I'm talking on CNN or other things, I get to talk for about 3.5 minutes about the royals. So here we can really sort of examine in depth this story and figure out what went wrong, what went right, and what might happen in future.
Yeah, wonderful.
So do you think there'll be another season of The Crown?
Peter Morgan, in creating The Crown, made a remarkable achievement that we probably don't appreciate now, but future generations will. And I said before, the greatest judge of any art is time. And I think in 20, 30, 40 years history, what he's created with those seasons of The Crown is a document of the 20th century, through the eyes of the royals, of course. And I think it's also helped create much more interest in the royal family than there ever was before, and understanding as well. And so as for whether there will be another series, yes, I mean, he, I think it ended around 2005, something like that. So there is material there for the future. But Guy deserves a break, for goodness sake, And so, yes, and there could be, or maybe somebody else will take it on in future. I mean, there's certainly going to be plenty more seasons in real life, and there's certainly plenty to document, because the whole Meghan and Harry stuff, was left alone. I wonder if that had something to do with Meghan and Harry's deal with Netflix, and the fact that The Crown was on Netflix, where they ended it before they got to that relationship. But I, for one, would love to see more.
Wow. So tell us about the Royal Society of St. George. I know this was inspired by the Queen's love for horses. Why did you get involved in this cause?
There is nothing more patriotic than an Englishman who no longer lives in England. And you certainly feel about your home nation very differently when you move away from it. And that's probably true of anyone with your hometowns or home countries, whatever it is as well. So having talked about the royals on television, reported them, I suddenly found myself becoming much more aware of the good that they do. And so I was lucky enough to discover the Royal Society of St. George, of which at the time Her Majesty the Queen had long been a patron. And what this is, it's a charity that lends a helping hand with a red, white and blue glove. Doesn't go around shouting about it, but helps in a sort of dignified, distant, sincere, and kind way, which sort of represents the best of British and the best of the royals in a way. So, for example, with the pandemic, we were able to use contacts to get masks to local hospitals when they were struggling. With the Malibu fires, we were able to go out and rescue horses, and then help in other subtle ways as well, and have award shows twice a year that really reward those who maybe sort of aren't in it for themselves, are in it for others, and highlight those people as well. So yes, I'm honoured to be Deputy Chairman of the Royal Society of St George, and keep that message alive about what the Queen stood for, and what the royal family is at its best, and what Britain is at its best as well. It's been established as long ago as 1894.
Wow.
It's England's oldest patriotic society, and yes, it's just a thrill, because I always think the most important thing in the world is kindness, and that's what that society seeks to represent.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, and I think King Charles has yet to establish himself and what he will be making the tenets or the hallmarks of his reign. But my understanding is that he has great concern about environmental issues and other social justice issues, which I'm hoping he will be bringing to the fore.
I very much doubt he will. And so because there is a lot of difference between being prince and being king. Now, even though the monarch is the head of the government, it's His Majesty's government, and it is whereas here you have Congress, here we have the monarch signing all the bills into law, meeting with the Prime Minister every week. But when you're a prince, you can do what Prince William is increasingly doing now, which is maybe express, gently talk about social causes, issues. Now, Charles was very vocal on architecture, the environment, but ever since he became king, he has buttoned it, and he has just left it to his government to do those policy. Now, he can meet in private with the Prime Minister and express his opinion, but he learned well from his mother, who never made a political statement in all those years. And that way, you can be ruler to everybody. It's not, I hate the monarch because they're left wing, they're right wing, or something. No, the royal family sees themselves as above politics, at least at the level of the monarch. So we were talking before about how the royal family might change, and so going into the future, yes, maybe it'll be different with William, who was certainly, had, been more outspoken in the last 12 months than he has in the previous 12 years, for sure, on things. But yes, he is also born to the crown, so knows it'll be different when he wears it.
So we're at the 3-minute mark. This is a question we usually ask all the guests. If you could have dinner with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
So it would be the only A-list celebrity I've never met, and the one that I admire above all others, the one that I feel could be president of the United States, and that person is Taylor Swift, who I think is the greatest living role model for young girls in this country and around the world. I'll say why. Because she writes her own stuff. She's got an incredible work ethic. She's been on this world tour of concerts. She never misses a show. She doesn't cry off or anything like that. She has a responsibility to the audience. She's humble, and because she's high profile, she's automatically hated. I mean, it's difficult for any public figure today, especially women, because social media, there's automatically half the audience that hates you. But I admire how she's doing her career. I look forward to seeing how she develops in future, and I'm sure we'll meet eventually.
Awesome. Sandra, passion is your engine. It is incredible to see how you're able to juggle so many things at the same time. Thank you so much for visiting us, having this chat with us. This has been fantastic. You're such an inspiration to so many others who want to move from all over the world. I was born in England as well, so it's incredible to see all that you're doing. Very proud of all of the things that you've been able to accomplish. Folks can actually follow you to find out about all of the new things that you're working on. You're on X, Instagram, and you've got a website, Sandro,
I'm on Facebook. I'm on all socials at Sandro Monetti. My book is Confessions of a Hollywood Insider, and sandromonetti.com if you want to learn more. Thanks for the privilege of your time today, and thanks to you as well.
Thank you so much, Tony. This has been incredible, just hearing all about what he's done. It's been fantastic.
I totally agree. And now I know that we're both Madonna fans and Swifties.
Incredible.
So happy.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Please watch this episode with Sandro on the Discovery Pod with Eve's YouTube channel, or you can listen to us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, or wherever podcast is available. Check us out every Thursday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. Tell your friends to watch us. So please join us next week for another episode of the Discovery Pod with Eve. Thanks to Roger Neal, our executive producer. See you all next time. Thanks again, Sandro, for joining us. What a wonderful conversation. It could have gone on and on and on and on. So thank you, everyone, for watching. See you again soon. Bye.